Hey everybody, it's another Tuesday tip. I know it's on Thursday today and not Tuesday. I was jet lagged. What can I tell you? So I get asked a lot by parents about what kind of vehicle do I get for my child when they want to start driving. You know, your kid's 16, 17, 18, 19, and suddenly they want a car. And now it's like, okay, what do I do? You know, to some extent you want to get, well, I get an old clunker because it's big and they get wrapped in steel. When I was a kid, I heard that a lot from parents. I want to wrap my kid in steel. So they'd buy some Crown Victoria or some big Buick. The other thing that when I was a kid was dads would buy their daughters the cars that they wanted to drive when they were in high school. So they'd buy their daughters like Firebirds and Camaros. Okay, bad idea. Buying your kid any type of souped up car is a really bad idea. That's a recipe waiting for an episode of 911 waiting to happen. Now, we, in my business, represent people who are involved in wrecks, and roughly 50% of the people that we represent do not survive the wrecks. And we've had streaks where those people are kids in their 20s. In fact, we had one period of time where we had 9 kids in a row. That were 9 cases that came in the door in a row that were kids in their 20s who parents had to bury as a result of the wrecks that they were involved in. So here's some of the things that we've learned. Now you can look up online Consumer Reports and they'll give you the best cars to buy for kids. And you know, not surprising, most of them are Toyotas or Mazdas. I would suggest a mid-size car rather than a smaller car. It's amazing how well mid-size SUVs do in wrecks, especially like a Mazda or even a CRV, a Honda CRV. Obviously, the higher-end cars do much better in wrecks. Mercedes, BMW, Lexus, those vehicles do better in wrecks than lower-end cars. Hard to find something like that to buy for your kid, or maybe not economically feasible, but maybe you can find something that's 5 or 6 years old that's got more miles on it. It is incredible how well minivans do in wrecks. And I know that sounds kind of crazy, but we have more than one client that will only drive a minivan because it was a minivan that saved their life, in particular in a head-on wreck. Now, it's going to be hard to get your kid to drive a minivan. None of them want to do that, but it is one of the safest vehicles out there. When it came my daughter's turn to want a vehicle, I said, what's the safest thing that you will let me put you in? Well, I had about a 6-year-old Lexus with about 70,000 miles on it. She said, Dad, I kind of like your car. Deal. So she drove that car because it's incredibly safe in a wreck. I wouldn't put anybody in anything small. I mean, Prius actually does the best in a wreck of a small car, but I would never put a kid in a small car. Medium to a medium-sized car, in those small SUVs, not the big SUVs. You don't want to put them in the monster trucks. You don't want them in a Suburban or something like that because they roll and they don't swerve very well. And if they're going too fast on a corner, they'll roll. You want them in those mid-size SUVs. Here's the real thing to think about. The majority of the time when we see a young adult killed in a wreck, what happens is their vehicle is broken down and on the side of the road, and they're hit by somebody going down the road. And more often than not, the person that's going down the road is not using alcohol or drugs or on their phone. It's just that the shoulder that the car is on is so small and the people are around trying to mess with the vehicle, and all of a sudden they get a little bit too close and a car coming along doesn't pay attention, clips a door, clips something, and they're killed. So I would, for my money, the most important thing is the reliability of the vehicle. You want a car that, as best as you can make it, is not going to break down. A lot of times kids are driving later at night. A lot of times they work jobs where they have to close up stores and they're coming home at 1 o'clock in the morning or midnight. Not the best time to be out on the road. Or whatever they're doing has them out later in the evening. Let's face it, they tend to be out later in the evening than we do. And the car breaks down on the side of the road, and the next thing you know, something happens, especially on a highway. So number one, I would get the most reliable vehicle possible in terms of breaking down. Giving we have a tendency to buy cheaper, older cars for kids, and like we wrap them in metal thinking, well, they're going to be safer because they're in these big old cars. It isn't the wreck, it's the fact that the car breaks down and now they're on the side of the road. Next, teach them to get away from the car if it breaks down and it's on the side of the road. They're going to want to try to fix it, and they'll be around the car and they're looking at stuff. Get away from it. And the other thing that people will do is they'll go stand in front of the car. Okay, well, that's not where you want to be. You want to be away from the vehicle, out past the ditch and behind the car. So if somebody comes along and clips that car, the car is going to go forward. If you're behind the car, you're not going to get hit. So my advice from what we see in this office, number one, mid-size vehicle to mid-size SUV. Don't buy the big stuff. Obviously, Toyota, Mazda, Lexus, those vehicles tend to be the best and the most, best in wrecks. You can look up BMWs are very good in wrecks. Buy the vehicle that make sure you check out that engine, you check out the tires, you check out the things that can break down so that car doesn't break down by the side of the road. If the vehicle does break down by the side of the road, make sure your kids understand, number one, get it as far over as possible and then get the heck away from it. Get out of the car, everybody get out of the car, and get way over by past the ditch, away from the vehicle as much as possible. If they're on an interstate, get away from that thing. And then immediately call. Immediately call and get somebody there to deal with the car. But don't try to fix it. If you get a flat tire, get away from it. Get away from the car unless you're on a street that's safe and you can try to change the tire. Get somebody there who's a professional that knows how to change the tire, and don't have them trying to do that. I'll bet 90% of the kids that we see that die in wrecks, their car's broken down by the side of the road, and that's how they get hit, is they get hit by the side of the road. So very serious conversation, but a question that I get asked a large number of times, and I think the most important thing, make sure that vehicle is reliable when you send them out, and teach them what to do in the event something happens. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. We'll see you next Tuesday. Until next time.